We continue with hour number 2 of Beyond the Beltway, and with almost 27 million people now applying for unemployment, obviously putting food on the table for themselves and their families is a continuing problem facing the country. And joining us now is Abby Liebman. She joins us from California. She is the head of an organization called Mazon, and that's a Jewish response to hunger. She's spent most of her adult life working in this field. And Abby, thank you very much for joining us on Beyond the Beltway.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'd like to begin by asking, most of your work is with the federal government, and I want to talk about the federal response and how states and individual organizations deal with hunger. But
Mhm.
how does the federal government define hunger?
So, really, when the federal government discusses hunger in America, it's really talking about food insecurity, which sounds fairly wonky, but when you think about what it actually means, which is that a family does not know where its next meal is coming from, or a parent has to skip a meal in order for the children to have enough food. You
Hmm.
can get a sense that what that means is that this family is insecure about its nutrition resources, where and how it is going to locate enough food to feed themselves and their family members. So that the federal government is really much more concerned with the notion that people are having lives that are unstable because they cannot find adequate food, more so than the idea that we're hungry, because hunger describes a condition that many of us have experienced, but
Right.
we are secure enough to be able to satiate it.
So if you are without a job at the moment, you've got
Yes.
2 or 3 kids, you're trying to feed them, and
Mm.
and a husband and or a wife.
Mhm.
Uh, where do they go now? I mean, if they need something like right now,
Mhm.
how many federal resources are out there throughout the country where they could go and get the necessary uh, items that feed the table, fill the
So
table?
our government has a remarkable nutrition safety net, which is how we refer to all of the programs that work in synergy to provide adequate resources to those who qualify for them. And interestingly, when you make some distinction between the federal and the state governments, actually, federal and state governments have to work very closely together in order to make certain that this system works the way it is intended. Now, the federal government's primary flagship program in all of this is SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which formerly was called food stamps. And those benefits are available to those who qualify for them, and you have to keep qualifying for them. They are also governed in large measure by what states seek permission to do from the federal government to expand the availability or the amount of those resources. So again, you see the state and federal government working very closely together. But SNAP is a resource that anyone who finds themselves in a circumstance where they no longer have an income, they do not have the prospect of an income in the short term, near future, can apply for these benefits and should be applying for these benefits.
Now, what are some of the criteria you need to pass before you get your SNAP card? And we should mention, just to make sure I understood what you just said,
Mhm,
since obviously understanding nomenclature is important in the
mhm.
21st century. The concept food stamps, that's passe. That's not a term used
Correct.
anymore.
That is correct because they're no longer stamps. It's
Okay,
an EBT card, an
okay.
electronic benefit, like a debit card.
Okay. And
Um,
again, d- does money get automatically put on that
mhm.
each month by the government entity?
It does. Once you qualify and you receive your card, yes, the money is just automatically loaded onto it at the end of every month for
How do you
the
qualify?
preceding. Mostly, it's about financial um, resources.
Hmm.
So both issues about income, which now for people who are unemployed, they will qualify based on income. There's also asset tests. Now there are governors who are seeking waivers of some of these tests and these criteria so that the system is open more to those who might not otherwise have qualified, because at this time we see that people have few options
Hmm.
in order to either seek employment, and we don't want them to deplete all of their assets just to feed their family.
Right. Now, does each individual state have their own state program, and how is that compared with the federal program?
So the federal program is administered by the states. So it's the same program.
Okay.
It's just that each state has certain criteria that it works with in order for people to not only qualify, but for how they get the benefits and the systems that they use for those. A lot of times this is passed down to the counties and people apply through their county.
Mm-hmm.
That and there are variations both in the amount of benefits that are available. Some states actually supplement the benefits that the federal government provides, but there's also ways in which, again, states can seek waivers of the what the basic program is that the federal government provides in order to enhance it in their state.
In previous years, was there a stigma to being on food stamps, and has that subsided?
So I would say in previous moments there was a stigma. I'm not so sure it has subsided at all. I
Okay.
think that for many people who would think nothing of saying like I paid my taxes, I qualify for Social Security, as soon as it's available, I'm going to get on Medicare. They somehow balk at the idea of seeking food resources. Now, this program isn't one that everybody naturally is going to access, but in a time like this, issues about stigma, barriers that people erect for their whatever that's coming from their own sensibilities about who they are in a community or how they've managed for themselves need to go by the wayside,
Mhm.
because this is a program to which they are entitled to get access, and they really must.
Now, yours is described. Your organization, Mazon, is described as a Jewish response to hunger.
Right.
How does that differ from a Southern Baptist response to hunger?
It probably doesn't. But Mazon's a Jewish response to hunger, meaning that Jewish values and traditions inform the way in which we approach our work.
Hmm.
That because we are very conscious of what you just alluded to, the fact that people should be able to access help when they are vulnerable in dignity and without judgment. And that comes from the teachings of the Torah. And we believe very firmly in that, that we are not in a position to judge others. We are in a position only to help them. And that is something that we must do. And again, our tradition teaches us that communities are responsible for those that live in them. And since our community is the United States, our United States government is responsible for its community.
Now, when you have a SNAP card,
Mhm.
you say that is the criteria is reviewed periodically.
It has been.
How often
So
does that happen?
it can happen monthly in states, can happen every 3 months in some states, but for all intents and purposes, most governors have sought a waiver so that they no longer have to recertify people, so
Are
that you're
you
just
limited?
automatically.
Are you
Hmm?
limited to what you can buy with your SNAP card?
Very much so. It has to be food. It's not even all food. You can't buy alcohol, can't buy cigarettes, can't buy diapers, can't buy paper towels, can't buy it has napkins. It has to be food, which is fairly broadly defined. And, you know,
Okay.
candy's food. Um, but it's
I want to talk more about that when we continue. We're talking with
Mhm.
Abby Liebman, and she's with a group called Mazan, and they are based in California. And we will continue. If you have questions, 1-800-723-8289. Bruce Dumont back. We continue with Beyond the Beltway, and Abby Liebman joins us from Los Angeles, where she heads a group called Mazone. And a couple of practical questions about this SNAP program, because in addition to the SNAP program, which again is a federal program, it's been around for quite some time. It's not food stamps anymore, folks. It's called the SNAP card, and there's limitations to what you can buy. You can't get beer and cigarettes and stuff that and you can't even get toilet paper though. That maybe is
yeah.
should be reviewed at the moment. Uh, but people hear about food banks, and there are literally hundreds of food banks all over the United States.
Yes.
Are they tied with this federal program in any way, or is that all nonprofits?
So the food banks are all a separate nonprofit um, part of the anti-hunger infrastructure in this country. So You have the charitable response to hunger, which actually used to be called the emergency response to hunger,
Hmm.
and that's in large measure because food banks don't have the infrastructure or the resources to feed the 40 million Americans who were food insecure the day before the pandemic
Right,
started.
right,
And there are now, what, over 25 million people who are newly unemployed,
right.
which means that we're looking at 60 million people. And there is no charitable system in the world that has the capacity to meet that need. So, food banks provide essential, immediate resources to people while they're qualifying for SNAP and the applications being processed. Or, sadly, the last week of the month, when your SNAP benefits have been used and you don't get more for another week and you don't have any groceries. So the benefit from SNAP isn't designed to really provide you with a full access to all of the food that you need. It's meant to supplement that which you already have.
Does the SNAP card does that get recalibrated on the first of the month, or is it staggered for different people in different regions?
It's midnight on the last day of the month.
Midnight on
So
the last day of the month.
yeah, so at 12:01
Okay,
a.m., that's when
the
people's
SNAP card
benefit
goes.
card is full.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, again, getting back to the coordination between how widespread is it that if you are in need of these services, is the awareness of the emergency aspect of the food bank, is that something that people just generally know about it if they're at the lower rung and they're at wits end?
I don't know because the way the system really works in what we consider the normal times here without a pandemic is that a food bank is more like a warehouse and it has clients and those clients are food pantries. It doesn't usually see families or individuals. It's providing food to pantries in a network that is established and people go to the pantry to access their groceries from there. So now what we see is that food bank system responding with tremendous alacrity to what they could see was a system they had to pivot. And that's what you look for in a crisis, right? Institutions to pivot and meet a
Right.
real need. So now people can, in fact, drive up to the food bank to get groceries. Can they get enough? Probably not. Can they keep going? Not clear. And they get perishable food? That is probably a no, because most food banks and food pantries don't have the refrigeration and the transport facilities that make them capable of both transporting, housing, and then distributing perishable food.
So
So
we
there's
see that
challenges.
we then see some of the stories of farmers in the dairy land having to destroy milk because they can't process it and get it
Mhm.
to uh, millions of people that may need it. And I think we're going through that now with some of the chicken plants around the country that their
Mhm.
chickens are literally about to be no good. They're going to become rancid if
Yes.
because they can't be processed in time.
Right. So this, if nothing else, the pandemic has revealed two things. Both the gaps and challenges within the food system chain in the United States between farmers and producers and those who process and then how you deliver food and the where consumers access it. So there's all kinds of glitches in that system of which we'd never been that aware until we saw it all sort of happen here in front of our eyes. And then you have a system in which we see that our food nutrition safety net is not as solid as it should be. And on the one hand, we have governors who are seeking all kinds of innovative ways to get the federal government to be more responsive and make SNAP more accessible to the Congress that has increased the benefit that people can get. And then the administration, which seems to be, on the one hand, saying that they are in support of many of these changes, and on the other is still working to try to limit the number of people who get SNAP. Most specifically, the requirement that if you're an able bodied adult without dependents, you can only get SNAP for 3 months unless you find work.
Hmm.
And in this time, you cannot find work. So that rule got put on hold. And it
Will it be?
meant
Is the goal now then to maybe link that with unemployment compensation?
Well, the goal is to get that rule to be ruled unlawful, so that it never goes into effect.
Mm-hmm.
But there are links within states about how you qualify for SNAP, that some states expedite this process by linking it to other benefits that people seek,
Mm-hmm.
usually subsidies for things like electricity, heating, that kind of thing. So in places where it's very cold or places where it's very hot,
Mm-hmm.
when those systems are taxed and people can't afford the high cost of energy,
Mm-hmm.
they get supplements from their states, and states sometimes link that to SNAP
With
too.
the SNAP card, is there any? Because I know you've also been interested for much of your life with nutrition. So is there anything tied in that? Is there any educational program that is intended for those who are users of a SNAP program to
Mhm.
understand the nutritional value of some things they get? Because you didn't say candy bars were off limit, right?
No, no, they're not.
Okay, so
But there are,
someone
yeah.
conceivably could go in and fill it up with candy bars and Pringles and soda pop, and
Well,
that's
so I mean, we could say that any of us could do that, but most of
no, I
us
understand that.
don't think of that as a nutritional way to feed ourselves
Right,
or our families. So
right.
people don't. But there are, in fact, programs that help with nutrition education more, Bruce, really, because it's such a limited amount of money and there are so few things that you can afford with it, to help people figure out how to make a nutritious meal out of items that are not as nutritious as the rest of us can usually afford to buy.
How
You
much is
can
what is the base SNAP card entry? What do they
So
get?
the average benefit for a family of four in the United States is $465 a month. Now, right now, they're getting the maximum benefit, and which is something that Congress did, so that they're getting a little bit over $600 a month. Now, if you break it down, it's really only a few dollars a day, for each person. And it's very hard to eat a nutrition rich, balanced diet on what amounts to $4 for every meal. It's a very $4 a day,
Hmm. Where
which is terrible.
what role, if any, do the grocery stores and grocery chains in the United States either play in the program you're talking about, which is the federal
Mm-hmm,
SNAP program,
mm-hmm.
or those that participate in local food pantries?
So um, a lot of grocers are very generous about donating product to their local food pantries or local food banks. And they do a lot of that donating actually at the national level, where you have large corporate manufacturers of food who donate through Feeding America. So they distribute that through their network. But SNAP is a great economic driver, because in the same way that any individual, when you spend money in the grocery store, you are driving that economy, both the economy locally, the economy for those that are producing this food. Anyone who's using SNAP is also buying food.
Is
So
is
in
fee
any,
is
Mhm.
Feeding America the largest nonprofit? I know there are many, but uh,
Mhm.
are they the largest that exists out now?
Well, they're certainly the largest anti-hunger charity in the
Right,
United States, and their
right,
budget's about $2 billion, I think. So
yeah,
they're very large.
right.
Yes,
And I
and
know
that
I know
they serve
today
a
is that if you go to I've seen the commercials. If you go to Jersey Mike's today, 20% of their
yeah.
profits today are going to be going to Feeding America,
Mhm.
which is a. I'm sure there's
Right.
other companies that have done similar things over the years.
Right. So Feeding America serves, as I said, this vital purpose. These
Mhm.
food banks and their food pantries are really essential to help people meet the needs that they have at the end of the month when SNAP runs out,
Right.
or before they get SNAP, or if they can't qualify for SNAP. The
Are the
challenge we have
major
is
Are
is
the
that
major food companies, Abby, are the
Mhm.
major food companies also regular contributors to food banks around the United
Mhm.
States with overruns or things that are about to expire?
To the best of my knowledge, yes. I mean, Mazzone is not a food bank, and
Right.
we
Hmm.
don't necessarily. participate in systems that are governing those, but we
Sure.
are, of course, we are aware of that,
Sure.
and that's generally, I think, what happens. Yes.
What can listeners and viewers to the program, if they want to help or learn more about what you do, and they hopefully after this interview have a better understanding of the food safety net in America, what should they do? Where do they go?
So there's two things they can do. They can go to our website at mazon.org. So mazon.org. The other thing to do is there's been very little attention paid to food and nutrition in the COVID response. And some happened very early on in the first response build, but it didn't do enough and it didn't affect enough Americans. And
Okay, so you
if
need
nothing else,
you
you
need
should
more money in the next package. We're out of time at this particular point. Abby Liebman, thank you very much, not only for being with us, but for the work you do. I'm Bruce Dumont.
This
Back
is
shortly. Bruce Dumont back in Evanston, Illinois, and for the last several weeks, there's been many stories. Initially broke out of Chicago, is the significant disparity in COVID-19 deaths between the general population and the African American communities and people of color. And so we're now joined by Dr. Sylvia Gates Carlisle. She's a medical doctor, and she joins us from her home in California. And Dr. Gates, Dr. Carlisle, nice to have you with us on Beyond the Beltway. I'd like to begin by hearing from you. What is the single biggest thing we should know about improving the disparity between deaths of blacks and browns with the general population? What do we need to know? Hello, I'm not hearing Dr. Gates. Is she there? Dr. Gates, we're going to speak up. Are you there? Dr. Gates, are you there? Dr. Carlisle, are you there? Okay. Are you there? Dr. Carlisle, are you there? I cannot hear Dr. Carlisle. Okay. While we're doing that, the issue, we talked about this briefly last week. Obviously, part of the issue is there are the underlying conditions that exist in many of the patients who pass away from COVID-19. They are diabetes, their hypertension, their heart disease. Those are the big three that you've been hearing a great deal about. In many cases, these are prevalent in the African American community around the United States, have been for many, many years. And then there's the issue of whether or not, just culturally speaking, how many medical facilities and how many doctors are working in the inner cities of the United States, where African Americans could go and seek help if they were looking for help. So I'm looking at a screen. I'm seeing Dr. Carlisle nod. That means she can hear me. Now the big question is, Dr. Carlisle, speak to see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Okay.
Good.
Here's my question. Glad we got together. Kind of straighten yourself up a little bit. You're a little off camera. There you go. My question to you is, what do we need to know about the general health of the African American community if we want to understand the disparity that exists?
We have two kinds of disparities affecting the African American community. We have disparities in health and disparities in health care. If we look at disparities in health care, many cities and municipalities have noted that Black people are getting tested less frequently than others in the population. And this is problematic because we're not learning the lessons from other communities with COVID, where diabetics, people with heart disease, have worse outcomes. So we have a system that cannot adapt to the information we do know. We also know
is one thing that doctors and the scientists would agree is that within the African American community, hypertension, diabetes, and to a lesser extent, heart-related issues. They're a systemic problem within the African American community,
That is true.
with obesity and diabetes being probably the worst.
There are the incidence of hypertension in the Black community is 20% higher than the general community for all ages. And when you get to middle age individuals, hypertension is twice as prevalent as in Black communities as white communities. So we know hypertension exists. Hypertension contributes to cardiovascular disease. And so those two things are linked. And then we have the increased incidence of obesity in all Americans and in the Black community, and the effect of stress and stress hormones on insulin resistance and diabetes. So we have many confounders.
Now, the hypertension aspect of it, uh, what could be done to zero in on reducing risk or the risk of hypertension? Are there treatments that can be used? Are there behavioral differences? How do you tackle one of the major feeders of death?
Hypertension is more common in African Americans than Africans. So there's something going on in the United States that cannot be attributed to the genetic material that Africans share with African Americans. So there's something in the US environment that we need to address. But pending our ability to address the milieu of the United States, we know where Black people are. We know who's likely to get hypertension. So we need to direct resources to addressing hypertension, particularly when it has multiple factors of death and morbidity, even without COVID.
What about heredity? Is this, if we were to go back 100 years from now, would we say then, if there was research at that time, would we say that that was a problem within the African American community then?
It's unknown what we can say in the past, but we know that African Americans are different from Africans.
Hmm.
We and our African brothers share a significantly similar genetic material, but yet African Americans have twice as much hypertension as Africans. So we can't put everything on genetics. There are things about environment, the environment people live in, that contribute to illness and the inability to be healthy.
We talked in the last segment, I don't know whether you heard it or not, we were talking about food safety and how the food safety net works in the United States with the SNAP program and also the various food banks. Um, Obviously, I think a lot of people know that in African American communities around the United States, there's not enough variety of grocery stores as there are in Caucasian neighborhoods. So in those neighborhoods, what may pop up is a mom and pop or a 7-Eleven or a franchise of some kind, which isn't known for the high quality of nutritional food that's there. Is that part of the problem, or is that a fair analysis of what the obesity problem might be?
Well, association is not causation because Americans in general are becoming obese.
Yes.
And so we have the issue of food deserts. And yes, there are poor communities and ethnic communities that have food deserts, but all of America is not a food desert. What is the reason that Americans in general are becoming more obese? Those factors are probably the same in ethnic and lower income communities. So we need to look at some things that are universal across the board in the United States and also the unique needs of particular constituents. And so if we cure obesity in all of America, there will probably be advantages to ethnic communities and poorer communities. But we haven't figured that out yet either.
When I was growing up, I had a health class. Believe it or not, I had a health class. Do they even teach health in public schools in Los Angeles where you live?
Well, we know that there has been a loss of physical education, When I went to school, everyone had PE and
Sure.
recess to burn off calories. When you and I went to school, people had better quality food to eat, fewer additives, and healthier food. So those are contributors that we all need to work on.
Hmm.
But then we also have the problems that specifically affect ethnic communities and lower income communities.
You mentioned earlier that there has been less testing in the African American communities than in the Caucasian communities. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Right now, we know that we don't have a lot of ethnic data on testing. In areas where we do have ethnic data on testing, California, Philadelphia, and some other areas, it's very unfortunate that African American communities are getting tested less. In some national data analysis of claims that are being paid, African American patients are being tested less. So we have a problem that we need to start thinking about. How do we address solutions? How do we proactively respond to incomplete data?
Now, your organization, we should mention, you are president of the Association of Black Women Physicians, and congratulations on your presidency. What is the goal of your organization?
Well, the Association of Black Women Physicians is has been in existence for 38 years. We're proud to provide scholarship support, and we've raised $750,000 to send African American women to medical school. We also believe in providing mentorship for medical students, pre-meds, residents, and physicians in practice. We also have community outreach. So right now we're encouraging the community to get COVID testing. We're available at Charles Drew University, University of California at Los Angeles, and other sites within greater Los Angeles.
And if people are interested in knowing more about your organization, where do they go?
People can find us at blackwomenphysicians.org, and we're really trying to get out the word to the community about testing, testing, testing.
Okay. Well, that seems to be the key for all communities. But again, Dr. Sylvia Gates Carlisle has joined us. Dr. Carlisle, thank you very much for being with us on Beyond the Beltway. When we come back, we're going to be talking about landlord-tenant relations. Are you a landlord? Are you a tenant? Are you paying your rent? Or are you skipping it? Back shortly. Bruce Dumont back, and thanks very much for joining us tonight, Beyond the Beltway, from coast to coast. From Evanston, Illinois, we join you this evening, and we now head back to California, where we're going to be joined by Lee Wang. Lee Wang is a Chinese immigrant. He came to the United States many, many years ago, spent his early years in Memphis, Tennessee, then fell in love with Chicago when he attended the University of Chicago, and in 2008 he got a physics degree, Bachelor of Physics, from the U of C. And Lee, however, he also fell in love with the concept of real estate. So he decided, hey, does the world really need another physicist? And you decided to go into real estate. I don't know whether your parents were happy about that. But as someone who's in the real estate business now, tell us a little bit about. I mean, you own basically small properties, some here in Chicago and some in California. Is that correct?
Hi, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Good.
It's good to be with you. Yes, I have three properties in Chicago. I bought my first condo in 2009 in Uptown
Mm-hmm.
when it was still kind of sketchy at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then following that year, I bought a couple more investment properties on the south side of Chicago, one in West Pullman and one in Roseland.
Mm-hmm. Now, at this moment, there's probably a lot of people who rent who are watching or listening tonight, and there's a lot of people who probably are the landlords. So put your landlord hat on and say, are all your tenants paying their bills now?
Yes and no. So the property that I have on the south side is a subsidized property right now, and it's being government sponsored. So a Christian community center basically sends out a check every month. So the government sponsored rent is still being paid every month. So
Mhm.
that's going. My condo that I'm renting out on the north side in Uptown is a working class family. The One of the renters is a bartender, so he totally got laid off and maybe was working 6 hours a week, just the minimal to keep something going. But and their bar is applying for the PPP so that they can get paid. And the other tenant is a real estate agent, so she's still making some money right now, and I'm getting partial rent from that property.
You have described their current situation, but as a landlord, unless you paid cash, are you paying a mortgage on these properties?
I owe those properties free and clear right
Okay.
now. The I actually before the lockdown, I actually refinanced the Southside property because I wanted to take out to invest in um, other portfolios of buildings,
Okay.
and I'm just very fortunate to have timed it that way. I
Okay.
totally didn't see this coming, but
Yeah.
I know a lot of my friends have been trying to get money out of their homes, and now it's a lot tougher in this climate.
So as of the moment, you don't have a gun to your head from a bank asking you to pay your mortgage. You're in a very unique situation.
Well, because I just got a loan on my investment property, I do have to pay that
Okay,
mortgage.
so you pay that back.
So I
Okay.
just got a mortgage, yes.
Okay. Now the
On
next,
the north side one, I do not
I
have one.
misunderstood that. But now, how strong a landlord are you going to be? I mean, how many months can you go if you've got one or possibly two uh, tenants who are not paying full rent?
Yes. So the south side property, that one is being paid pretty consistently by the Christian
Okay.
Community Center. So
Okay.
that one, a check comes in every month.
Okay. That's
I'm
because
not too
that's
worried
because
about that, right?
that's a
But
federal government check that's coming to you on a regular basis because of the type of
yeah,
housing.
I'm not sure where the check is coming from, but I'm getting a check. So it's coming from a Christian organization. They could be getting funding from the federal or the
Okay.
state. I'm not sure where they are.
We have Bonnie listening to us this evening in Crown Point, Indiana. She wants to join this part of the discussion. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, thanks for having me. So, I'm a commercial real estate lender on the Northwest side,
Uh huh.
and my company has been providing mortgages to property owners in Lakeview and Lincoln Park since 1893,
Uh huh.
and we're very well rated with the federal government. My clients are real estate investors. It's not home loans.
Right.
It's strip malls, 10 flats, mixed use properties.
Right.
And the stories that I'm hearing from customers, people are calling me and they're saying, I have 15 units and all of my tenants got together and they came to me and said, we're not paying our rent. Well, the thing of it is there's a lot of ridiculous information that's being put out on, by these tenants' rights organizations saying, well, you don't have to pay your rent. No, the county is not enforcing eviction orders, but you still have to pay your rent.
Mm-hmm.
And what I tell these people is I say, at some point, if they don't pay you what they owe you, you can legally go after them when this is all over. I say, start the paper trail, get yourself an attorney. And, what you want to push for is not only all the monies that are due to you contractually, but also legal fees that you're incurring.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my customers, I say,
But but Bonnie, it's going to be a battle. I mean, you've got to be. I mean, if you're a landlord,
oh,
in this,
it is.
and again, I understand and know some things about real estate in California. I mean, it's almost impossible to evict anybody in the state of California. I mean, literally, it's almost impossible. So again, this is going to be one of these stories that we're going to continue to evolve. Bonnie, I want to thank you very much for your call. We were a little tight on time. Lee, thank you very much as well. Again, we ran a little bit tight on this segment, but again, the subject is not going to go away, so we'll catch up with you in a couple of months, and hopefully your tenants by then are paying the rent. I'm Bruce Dumont. I want to thank Andrew Marshall for his assistance in the production of this program. One guest next week is going to talk about the great state of Georgia and how they're surviving the first week of Governor Brian Kemp's new way of life in Georgia. We'll find out how it's going. Bill Nigut of Georgia Public Radio will be one of my guests next week. We've got a great panel as well, and I thank you very much for being with us. I'm Bruce Dumont. Good night from Evan.